If you go to the link that I provided you, there will be one option that says launch VM. If you click on that, it will ask you to which domain, like is it D365 or is it something related to other thing. You have to select that as D365 professionals, and then you will get the screen like this. With the right side panel, you will have the instructions and the resources. In the resources, you will have the credentials to log into that environment.
When I click on that link, it's showing that you are signed in as, and it's showing that email ID. Then click on next, then display name, region,
Mhm.
country. What should I select? India or USA?
You can say like USA.
Okay.
Able to see my architecture diagram, the URL.
Yeah.
So in D365, how it works is basically Microsoft as a either as a customer or a partner, if you're trying to use my D365, you will need to first register in their Azure Cloud Portal as a tenant. A tenant is
Okay.
more like getting a unique ID number against your organization, which a global IT administrator will take care of. And within the Azure subscription portal, once you get an access, the first step you have to do is your organization would be having a Active Directory domain. That domain needs to be synchronized to the Azure Active Directory, and only from there you will get access to the credentials of other applications that is involved. So once you get all your users Active Directory credentials signed into the Azure Active Directory, from your Office Admin Center, you will have the access to provide the license to specific users. Each organization will get a minimum of 20 licenses as a basics for customer. That's the minimum amount of purchases they have to do. And from the from the Office Admin Center, they'll provide the license keys. And part of the implementation, they will also need to have LCS, which is going to be the entire project maintenance. Have you heard of LCS before? LCS, have you used of Dynamics 365 LCS? So LCS is more like an supporting platform where both the customers and the partners can come together and look at the progress of the entire project, starting from the initial analysis phase to all the way till the go live and post go live supports everything. So all your D365 steps and actions will be carried out in LCS, and DevOps would be an additional support tracking tool that will be used in coherent to LCS. And your Dynamics 365, it has two tiers, one is the data tier and the application tiers. And the server type is also there are two. One is either you can have the application within installed in an on-premises server within your local network, and or the other option is it will be a cloud hosted environment where the Microsoft or it is called as Microsoft managed environments where you will get an URL to the application to your production environment. The remaining source code and the database, everything will be managed by Microsoft, and that URL and the services, everything will be under LCS. So LCS will contain the project coordination and production server accesses. From there, you will be able to navigate to the finance and operation URLs. And if in case of any deployment that you have to do, any code movement, or if you need to take any backups from the production environments for Microsoft managed applications, or if you need to install any hot fixes, everything will be available from LCS, and from there you will have options to implement them or apply them to your finance and operation application. We'll go back to the environment screen.
I click on that link and then it is showing me that local admin and asking for a password. What will be the password for there?
Yes, here on the right side, right below the resources, you'll have see the password for the under the resource group. You will see a screen like this, like instruction, lab creator, or project. And the next tab, resources, you will see these details. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, that will be better. Just a minute.
Yeah. On the right side, you see the resources right next to the instruction.
Yeah, resources. Okay. Okay. This will.
Yep. It will automatically launch the URL right now. And for that, you have to give the first username from the top, the Azure portal. Just by clicking, then you just have to click the name, it will directly launch it for you.
On the next.
No, no, click on the username here on the right side panel.
Okay.
Click
This.
on,
Okay.
yeah, just click it, it'll add. Yeah, it'll automatically type up for you.
Okay. Okay.
Click on next, and you'll be able to enter the password the same way. So when it comes to D365, all the solutions, the source code, everything, Microsoft that has built, they will be under, instead of solution package, we call them as models.
Okay.
We go to views and application explorer. So the primary header files, or we call it as a primary models, we call them as a foundation models. Everything will be built by the Microsoft. The ones that is required for integers, strings, all those core applications, everything will be under the application foundation, application platform, and application suite. So these three models are primarily common for any solution that you're going to be building. So if I look at the dependency models, so the entire structure would be like this. They'll create one solution. Each square box that you see is a one model, starting from the starting model. The remaining all the developments that we do, we have to create them as a separate models. And for the initial header library files, whatever we needed, we need to give reference to those models, and we'll be start building it up. This one contains just your core application informations, and then comes the other informations, your platforms, and it keeps going on. Say for example, you're building a solution in finance related application. In that
Right.
case, you will need to inherit these three models and create your dependency model, your customized model over here. And from that model, any other finance related models, this is the model that you're, if this is the model that you're going to be customizing, then you will also need to include this model as a dependency. So based on the four models, the out of box three models and the finance model, all the four you need to include in your model while building your solutions. So model is a group of related objects related to a particular functionalities built against with the dependency from the Microsoft objects. Without, in other terms, we can put it as models is a group of customized objects that you build specifically for a particular solution. Within the models only, we will have the remaining objects that we are going to be building against the solutions. Okay, so model is like a package of all your objects that you will be able to develop and deploy for a particular application. So if I, after the solution is built, you just have to export this model and put it in a production or any other environment that you wanted, and it will immediately
Okay.
start working over there. Like a ready-made package, you can take it and put it over there. This model, first step in any development is this, we have to start creating a model. Or in most cases, if you're already working on an existing project, they might be already having a model in that, and you have to create your solutions within those models. So we have the SQL database as the backend, and
Right.
all the solutions that we are building will be available within this folder. You will see this AOS folder either in the C drive or in the K drive of your application. And within the AOS folder, there will be a package local directory. And if you open the package, you will have the all the metadata related to these models that we built. Any new
Right.
model, even if you're going to be building, that model will be stored over here. You created a model, and if you don't want those models, you can directly come here and delete that model and refresh the application. It will start working. But in case if you have created an object and if you want to edit them, you cannot come here and directly edit them. You have to edit it only within the application and then
Right.
make it synchronize over there. So because there are multiple reference points within the application, see there is XPP metadata folder and there is also bin folder. In these two folders, you'll have your objects XML files over here. So any solution that you're building will be saved under this path. If I need to log into a D365 environment or a
Yeah.
production environment, the first thing is I need to have an my username in the Azure portal, and that need to be LCS license need to be assigned to my username against my login account. Only then I will be able to log in. And even after I log into over here, a user administrator must give me an access to the role access. With every screen we see over here, we call them as forms, and
Okay.
all these are called as menu items. And if I log into the application, an administrator, the person, the initial person who deploys the environment, they will have access to the application, and they will be called as administrator. Other than the administrator, if other user needs to have access to it, the administrator will go in and need to import that user from the active directory. We don't have active directory in this environment. So import the user in the active directory, and they must provide us with a sufficient roles to access the individual application.
How can create a
So
new?
if it is a finance manager who's coming in, then he
How
needs
I
to
can
give only the
how I can create a new user? What?
a new user. You don't, if he's already there in the active directory, you can create them like this. Create a new and give their name. The main thing will be you need to give them an email ID over here, the domain email ID.
So it
Up.
should be the same domain ID, or it could be any domain ID. Like I'm putting a gmail.com or something like that. It is possible.
No, you cannot give Gmail account, but if you have different organization admin accounts other than Gmail or any public sector, if you have other domains, you have to enter your
Okay.
domain name over here.
Okay. Which domain means whatever for domain we are working, the domain email ID could should be there. Same.
Say, for example, like this. If you are logging into your same tenant, so for example, this account that I am using, if this
Yeah.
belongs to my organization, you don't have to
Right.
enter this provider domain name. If you're logging
Okay.
into someone else's domain and this is your mail ID, in that case, you have to enter your domain name over here and give a specific username over here.
Okay, like that, if you want to create my account, then you have to give email ID amar@sport11design.com.
What is the domain name? Can you type it in the chat?
Sport11design.
So as soon as you create a user, you will get a system user role directly assigned to you. And within that, you will have a office administrator role and a power automation role by default. This is the basic that it will automatically get added to you. Other than that, if
And
you are
what is user? It's logged in user ID or my
this one,
user ID? Yeah, this one.
Your first column user ID.
user ID is to identify you within the application. No, it is not the login ID. To log in,
Okay,
Okay.
you
okay,
should always have your your domain mail ID.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
You have to sign in with your domain username like this and the passwords against it. Here, when
It
you're
case
creating any
sensitive. It's case sensitive or not case sensitive? Email.
it's not case sensitive. It is not.
Okay,
So when you're creating any transaction within the application, any record that you create, your name will be saved against that. Kept There will be a track of what record you are creating. So to identify what
okay,
are the records that you are creating against your name, this ID will be used over there. This
okay,
ID will be saved in the tables that a particular user has been saved by this name. So they can come back over here in the this form and see who is that user, what is the email ID. All those details will be available. Other than the system user, if I provide the system user access alone, they won't be able to log into the application. In addition to that, whichever let me explain this. These are called the modules. The functional areas that we deal with, all these are called modules.
Okay.
So if any user needs to have, say for example, a finance manager or CFO, they're coming in and they need access to the finance related applications, then we provide them only with the finance specific roles that we have created.
okay.
I'm giving accounts supervisor, accounting manager, accounts payable management, everything, and I'll close it. It will get added, and this person with the mail ID when they log in, they will be able to see only the accounts payable, accounts receivable modules, and the remaining all will be hidden for them. It's kind of a
These rule
security.
are system created or user created?
These are system created. These are the
Okay,
existing already available. So I'll later in the classes I'll show you how to create the security roles also. Today I'll just explain the overview how to log in and navigate to the application.
Right.
okay, sure.
And if you want to provide a particular user with all the access to all the modules, all the screens, then we provide them with the system administrator. Now, after the system administrator is assigned, it will override all the other username roles, and they will be able to see every screens without any limitations. Now,
Okay,
here I'm an admin in this. I'm having a system administrator, so I have the flexibility to go to every screens without any limitations. I can change even the system basic settings, everything. So when a VM or development environment is provided to you, or when a production environment is provided to you, any environment that you get, the basically while deployment phase itself, deploying that environment itself, you will get the database along with it, and your data will be synchronized to not database. The objects from your database will be added to a application. So change this, we call it as application object tree, or normally we call it as AOT. Here under the data models, we have the tables. All the tables that we have over here is also available under the SSMS SQL Manager. Primarily, we'll get two databases. One database called as AXDB. This is our primary database. All the changes that we do, every transactions we create will be saved under this DB.
okay,
This is for data warehousing. When you have the external applications, when we have the larger volume of reporting and analyticals that need to be built, then we use this AXDB DW.
it's
Our
used for only
AXDB,
reporting.
no, not only for reporting. When you needed a host data center, or when you need to prepare a data warehouse environment, in that case, you will be needing this AXDW.
Okay.
Our DB is our primary database.
Okay.
Under this, the tables. So every table that you create in D365 over here will be automatically, not automatically, after build when you do a compile, and it will get synchronized to the SSMS, and you don't have to make any changes. The environment are pointed out at the back end when you are deploying the environments. Those informations are available under the web root and under the web root and also under the bin folder. This connection settings, we don't make any modification, or we don't make any changes, but all the informations are available over here for references. Any edits to this will corrupt our application. Once you get an environment, you may not get a URL. Find the URL for your application. You have to go to the IAS manager, and under the left side panel you'll have the sites, and below the sites the AOS services will be default available, and you go to the browser and it'll launch the URL for you. This will be your application URL.
So that application URL is creating automatically, or how? Means suppose this is the first application. When we deploy another application, so it will create it automatically, or we have to create something.
Well, there are few steps while deploying the VM. It'll ask you to,
Okay,
as a global administrator, it'll ask you to follow all those steps when you're launching that VM. Then once the VM is ready, it'll automatically launch for you.
okay. Similar like that, like it used to be earlier in VB.NET
Yeah,
when we have to run the application. Okay.
there are prerequisite steps to launch this. So this,
Yeah.
say, most cloud development environments, we call them as cloud hosted environments. They will by default will have the same name. This would be the unique name they already have, but this URL cannot be accessed external outside the VM. So this name is registered within this application. But if you want it to be a public accessible outside the VMs, then the
Right.
administrators will have to have few steps that needs to be executed to purchase those domains, and it will launch outside also after that.
And one more thing, like we develop one application here. So suppose we develop it for our client. So it will be here, or we can move that application on his domain. What is
And no, solutions are not limited to domain. Solutions,
okay?
it is independent of the domain. What we you
Okay.
can build a solution over here, and you can take
Okay.
export it and you can import it over there like a package,
Okay.
and
Okay.
like a
Okay.
moving
Got
a
it.
project, you can move it.
Okay. Sure.
So primarily, every application, like every other application, we have the data types. We have integers, string, date, date and time. We call it as UTC date times. And
By
for
default UTC.
did you ask me
By
anything?
default, no, no, I'm saying by default daytime UTC.
And float are double. We call them as real over here. And we have int 64, integer 64s, which is used for as a primary keys in all the date tables. And other than that, we have the GeoIDs. Those are the five data types five or five to six data types that we have, and those are within the applications. What you will be seeing at the front end and the AOTs are extended data types. Extended data types are data types with additional properties that we can impose on them, and we can use them in our tables. So you are having a string just by creating string is a data type, and we need to have some limitations, like this string will only have 60 characters. It should not allow
Right.
special characters. All those properties would be having. So in extended data types, we create particular string and we set the properties on them to the way we want it, and
Means we
this
can
property,
customize according
yeah,
to us.
the way we wanted.
But,
Only these customizable EDTs only will data types will be available. That is called as EDTs. Customizable data types that we have are called extended data types. Enums are predefined text values or characters like male, female, gender. Those
okay.
options that we want to create, these are available as base enums. So every table that we create, it should have one EDT assigned to it by default. In this table, I have these fields available, and if I go to the properties of each field, it will have one EDT assigned to it primarily. Without the EDTs, we cannot create them. We create the field, and you have to assign that particular extended data types over here. That way, this field, when you are building it up and publishing it in the front end, these EDT properties will be by default applied to it, and the character limitations or negative values limitation, anything that we do, by default it will work on them. And the same way, it will just the records that you enter will be copied to the database. I'm just going over the objects initially. I'm not explaining the development, but just showing what are the
Yeah.
objects available and where we can navigate to them. And classes, we can build it over here under the codes node. Any in classes we have four types. One is the straight away the algorithms that we write, we save them under the class. Other than that, we have something called as runnable classes. Runnable classes are small piece of code that if you wanted to test a small piece of code, whether it is working correctly or not, so without any dependency or any functions, we'll be able to launch that code and verify if it is working correctly. Or more like if you want to write any scripts, data scripts, or something like a stored procedure that you want to write, you can write it under the runnable classes. And other classes are one is an interface classes and another is a macro classes. Those classes are more like used in the integrations when you have the values, when you have, they will be used as a base classes for your other inherited classes.
Okay, if I have a procedure, then I have to put there.
You have a stored procedure and you want to put it over here. No, here we use X++, right? That even the stored procedure that will not stored procedure, it works against the database. What I'm saying is in here you have you need this code to be running at the background when a particular operation is coming in the batch. It needs to be keep on running in the background when something is happening, a particular action is happening, but it is not related to any modules over here. In that case, you can have it running in the background. It is used in places where we can launch a particular URL
Kind
or something like the
like a
primarily
curl,
things.
curl object, no? In specific type, we can call any URL or something else.
And interface, user interfaces, this is where we build all the front end forms that we see. These forms will primarily will have all the tables that it'll be built based on the tables that we are building over here. So we'll be navigate drag and dropping them over here. I'll explain the development part. And after the form is built, we'll assign them to a particular menu items. So only these menu items will be launched in the front end. So everything that we see over here is the menu items, and within when we click on those menu items, it'll take us to the particular forms that we designed. So on the URL, first portion, it is called the company or the legal entities. The other term is legal entities. So in dev environments, you will have USMF and DAT legal entities and other legal entities. But if it is a client, a customer's application, you will see their own domain name over here, the company registered name over here. So
Okay,
all the data that you're entering will primarily save in two ways. One is it will be a global record, which means they will not have the legal entity ID against it. If it is, and there is also legal entity specific records, which means any transaction that any vendor or any customer or any transaction that you're entering, it will be saved against this particular legal entity name. So these records will be visible only under the particular companies that you're logging in.
yeah.
If I go to a different company and search for this vendor account, it will not be available over there.
Okay,
Technically, in the backend, how it saves as a so that over here. Okay, this one has a data ID. So like this, any record that you're entering, it will be saved against that particular ID at the database backend.
okay,
This we use it to filter the records during programmatically to make them visible in the front end based on that. This is part of a table properties. So if we mention the table as save the data per company, then it will create them by default with the company ID. If we say it as don't save the record for without the legal entities, then it will save as a global record which will be accessible across all legal entities. Mostly global records are used for parameters or any default values that we need across all legal entities, like the calendars or employee IDs or workflow names like that. The second part of the URL is the MI means menu items and the menu item name. So if we go to different screen navigations, you'll have the USMF. Here you can see the URL redirects to the menu item that I clicked on. So these are the primary objects that we will be using in the initial phase of the development. Later on, I'll go to the other objects over here. So for clear with the data types, tables and the classes and forms. So like I said previously, the first step in development is to create a model for our solutions. If it is a existing project, you'll already have a model in it, or if it is going to be a new implementation that you are doing for all the customization, you have to create your own model in it. This name is the primary model name is how we export is the name we use for exporting and importing, and it will be the unique name within the application. So you cannot have existing model names. And publisher name, you have to give your administration, the whoever is doing the development, that company's name we have to be providing over here. See, you had a different
Infotainment design.
and some description on the model, and click on next. So always it will be a new package. We won't be making any changes to an existing model. That will be a different step. So in this existing package is something more like a Microsoft package that we are making customization. We are not will be using it. We'll always be using create new packages and go to the next. And this is the place where we give reference to our dependency packages. Primarily,
Foundation of model.
these will be acting as our header files for our customization. So I'm selecting application foundation, application platform, application suite, and I'm launching. You can create a project separately also. I'm launching the project right from here by clicking on this text box, checkbox. Then after the model is created, the second step is to create a solution for it. Your project and the solution name both are available. I'm creating it in a new solution. So we have sample training, project, and solution, and this within the square brackets is our model name. You can change the model if you haven't added any objects to it, but once you have created a model and objects within that solution or project, you will not be able to switch them to a different model. This the model that I have created. If I go to the AOS folder, it has created for me. In that, I get these default files, and every object that I'm going to be building up, they'll be start created over here as within these nodes. The AOT node, all these nodes will be available over here as separate folders, and any EDT or class that I'm building up will be directly saved within these folders. What we are using right now, these are training instance. This training instance will expire will be available only for 2 hours. So if you're building any models, try to export them and save them if there's a major changes, or if next time when you are launching it again, it will start as a new VM and new data will be available. You won't be having this existing models. So every
Anytime we
day
can
when you're
increase your, anytime we
and
can add delete data model.
you can delete them anytime. Only issue is once you have created them once you have created and if you're deleting them, assume if there is a one more model that is created with the dependency to this one. This might be a header toward another model that is available. In that case, if you're deleting it, the dependency model will also be affected. In that case, you may have to delete the dependency models also.
So, like you are telling that after 2 hours that session will expire, how we can export or import the models?
From the command prompt, I'll give you that URL. From the command prompt,
Okay.
you'll be able to launch and export the VM models. Or you can just go to this model folder, AOS folder, cut this and paste it in your, copy this folder and paste it in your local machine. It will work.
Okay.
I'll also give you the command prompt URL. I will paste the link in the URL. Within the bin folder, we have the model util. This sometimes it will be your K drive. The OS folder will be either in the C drive or in the K drive. Metadata store path is your package local directory. And model name is the name that you have given it, sample D365 training. So this file you can copy and paste it in your dev machines, in your local laptops. And next time when you're logging into a new VM, you can import this
Yeah.
model and you can download. After you
Next time it will be
have
updated. When we done any changes, then after that, it will be updated.
no, it will not be updated. So after you're completing all the changes, only then you have to take the model out. And if you're exporting out and making any changes, that will not reflect over there. After all the changes you have completed, you export the model, and next time when you're importing it, after the model has been imported, you have to come to the extensions, Dynamics 365, and model management, and you have to do a model refresh. This will refresh all your dependency packages, everything, and it'll reconnect your model to the application, and you'll be able to working on them. Otherwise, if the model is not getting correctly refreshed, the URL will not launch. It will say the files, the metadata folder is corrupted, and you have to either delete that model or re-input it from the beginning. There are 5 services that needs to be running at the background every time when you're doing a development. Primarily W3C logging services. This keeps your metadata file refreshed and any code changes that you're doing. This services takes care of it. So always we need to make sure this service is running. Otherwise, the binary files on the AOS folder that will not be up to date. Another service is the World Wide Web Publishing Services for the URL and SQL Service Manager and the other services related to SQL, all these three. And in case if this is not applicable in the dev machines, in production we will have these 2 services. Unified Operation Batch Management for batch services operations that we're doing as something that needs to be running in the background or for any integrations. This service is mandatory. Data management framework, import and export. This for the a separate integration of framework is available within the D365. For that, this is required. So these 2 services are for not mandatory for production for dev machines, but they are also required part of the architecture. And W3C and World Wide Web, these two are primarily needs to be running. And SQL Server services related to the SQL, they should also be running. Any of these services are not working, then the application would not work. You have to rectify these errors in them and only then launch the URL. Now we have the models and create any objects within the model. We go to add, right click on the project, go to add and new items. Under the new items, you will have Dynamics 365 items. In that, you will get the exact same options over here. First, we are trying to create a data types. Either it is a UTC date, time or string or real integer, anything. Now this EDT is created. Any additional properties or limitations that we want to set on this ADT, we can set it over here. And what would be the label, how it needs to display in the front end. All those alignments, you can set it in this. In case if there is any limitation, you want to restrict it based on the user access level, or if it is related to any feature management. In that case, we go with the behavioral and the data thing. Other than that, we'll just primarily use these appearances where the label and what are the limitations in these. We'll also create one base enums. We have options for on-site and off-site. So I've created these two, one base enum and one EDT. And to see the output on this, needs to be added to a table. I'm creating one table and I'll drag and drop these objects over there. So I set the property for this EDT to be having a 60 characters. And here, if we look at the table field, we'll say the string size is 60. It'll inherit the web properties from that EDT and apply it to the particular field in this. And I do a before doing a build, if it is mandatory to have thing with the database property as set as true. If it is set as false, this changes that you're building up. If like you're creating a table, this will not get synchronized to the database. So I'm doing a build with synchronize over here, less than 2 minutes.
Now we will get on-site offsite option.
Still compiling. Environment is having an issue. There's a limitation over here. The object that we created is working fine. This particular environment seems to be having an issues. The training instance. You can try it in your dev machine. Tables, we have 3 types of tables. One is the regular table where the database will get saved to the database all the transactions that you're doing. Other than that, we have MDB and in-memory tables. Regular, in-memory, MDB. MDB is used for building reports. We don't. It's like you'll collect all the data required to launch that report, and then we'll publish it to the MDB tables, and it will give out the report. And after the report is published outside and printed out, the data will not be automatically get erased out from MDB tables. So only for that particular instance time period when you wanted the data to be printed out, as the data will be available in MDB. Primarily, it will be stored there, and as soon as you navigate to the other screens and you go out, it will get refreshed. In memory is more like saving the data in the runtime cache. It has a limitation of 128 KB, like a temporary dialog where you wanted to have this data populating, and then after you go out from that screen, you don't want the data to be there in that situations. We'll use the tables as a in-memory tables, like a primary cache. It will be there, and then after you go out, it will get erased out.